The word useless hit harder than I expected. Mom said it like she was commenting on the weather, her tone casual but sharp enough to slice through the chatter. Honestly, Noelle, you're almost 30 and still floating. You've never done anything real. The table went quiet. My younger brother poked at his mashed potatoes, avoiding my eyes. My aunt cleared her throat. Dad took a sip of water and said nothing, like always. I swallowed hard, pretending her words didn't sting. I'm doing fine, Mom. She gave a small laugh. Fine? You still live in that tiny apartment and drive that old car. You don't even have someone serious in your life. I looked down at my plate. She didn't know that just last week, I'd written a check for $240,000, enough to clear her mortgage. I hadn't told anyone. I wanted it to be a surprise, a gift. But in that moment, I realized surprises are for people who care about you. I forced a smile. You're right, Mom, I said quietly. I haven't done anything real. And in that silence, I decided to show her what real looked like, not through words, but through what I'd already done behind the scenes. Dinner dragged on like wet paint drying. Mom kept talking, stories about neighbors' kids getting promotions, my cousin's engagement, how the new generation lacked drive. Every word felt like a small reminder that I'd never been enough. When I finally stood to clear my plate, she said, "Don't forget to pack leftovers, honey. I know things are tight for you." That one hurt more than I'd admit. I smiled anyway. Thanks, Mom. You're very thoughtful. As I washed dishes in her marble sink, I glanced around her kitchen, the one she loved to brag about. New cabinets, quartz counters, fresh paint. None of it would exist if I hadn't quietly made her mortgage payment disappear the week before. It wasn't charity. It was gratitude. For the years she raised me alone, for the nights she stayed up working 2 jobs. I'd told the bank to send her the paperwork later that month. Now, I wasn't so sure she deserved to know. When I said goodnight, she hugged me, stiff and distracted. Driving home through the dark suburbs, I replayed her words, useless, floating, fine. For the first time, I wondered if I'd made a mistake, giving someone a gift they'd never see as kindness, only confirmation that they were right about you. The next morning, I opened my laptop to an email from the mortgage lender. Subject: Final confirmation, loan account paid in full. I stared at it for a long time. I'd imagined this moment differently, Mom crying, thanking me, realizing I wasn't a disappointment. But now it felt empty, like I'd solved a puzzle no one cared about. At work, I went through motions. I was a data analyst at a marketing firm, the kind of job no one understands but everyone assumes pays little. My coworkers liked me, but I was quiet, the kind of quiet that keeps you invisible. By lunch, Mom had texted me a recipe for soup, nothing else. No mention of last night. No mention of anything real. That evening, I printed the lender's confirmation letter and placed it in an envelope. I wasn't sure what I wanted, maybe to see her face when she realized what I'd done. Then I remembered her words, "You've never done anything real." I laughed under my breath. Maybe I should let the bank tell her instead. If she couldn't see my worth through effort, maybe she'd recognize it through something she valued more: numbers, money, proof. 3 days later, Mom called. Her voice was different, tight, confused, almost nervous. "Noelle, did you do something with the house payments?" I leaned back in my chair. "Why do you ask?" "Well," she said, hesitating, "the bank sent a notice. It says the loan is closed. Paid off." "But I didn't." "Didn't what?" "I didn't pay it off," she said, half laughing, half panicking. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not," I said softly. "It's done." Silence filled the line. Then, slowly, she whispered, "You paid my mortgage?" "Yes." Another pause. Then she sighed, not the grateful kind, but the tired kind. "Noelle, you shouldn't have done that. That's too much. You need to save for yourself. I felt my chest tighten. That was all? No thank you, no surprise, just mild disapproval. I wanted to, I said. It's not a big deal. She exhaled sharply. You always do things backward, Noelle. You should be saving for your own house, not paying off mine. I smiled bitterly after the call. She couldn't even see it, that I'd given her freedom, and somehow, she'd turned it into another reason I was wrong. A week passed before I saw her again. My brother, Aaron, invited me over for Sunday dinner. Mom's been acting weird, he said. You might want to come. When I arrived, she was quiet, almost guarded. The laughter she used to share with her friends was gone. We ate in silence until Aaron asked, Mom, what's up with the house thing? Heard you paid it off? She shot me a look. Noelle did. Aaron's fork paused midair. Wait, you did that? For real? I nodded. Yeah. He whistled softly. Wow. That's huge. Mom sighed. It wasn't smart. She should think about herself for once. I wanted to snap back, to ask her when caring for family became foolish. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, It's fine, Mom. Her eyes softened for a moment, not quite apology, not quite gratitude. Just confusion. After dinner, Aaron walked me to the door. You know she's proud, right? He said. It's just hard for her to admit it. Maybe, I said. But as I drove home that night, her words echoed again, useless, backward, foolish. Somehow, I had done everything right, and still managed to disappoint her. The next few days felt heavier than usual. Mom didn't call or text. Neither did Aaron. I tried to convince myself it didn't matter, that I hadn't paid her mortgage for validation. But deep down, I'd wanted at least a small moment of pride from her, something real, something warm. On Thursday, I got a call from her best friend, Aunt Maria. She was cheerful as always. Your mom told me you helped with her house, she said. That's so generous of you. Helped. Not paid off, just helped. I forced a polite laugh. Yeah, something like that. Maria chuckled. You're a good daughter, Noelle. She brags about you all the time. I didn't know what to say to that. After we hung up, I sat by my window watching the city lights flicker. It hit me then, Mom wasn't embarrassed about what I'd done. She was scared. Scared that people might know she'd needed help. For her, pride was armor. And I had unknowingly cracked it. That night, I drafted a message to her, you don't have to tell anyone it was me. Just be happy, okay? I deleted it before sending. She wouldn't understand the message, or the silence behind it. Saturday morning, I stopped by her house unannounced. Her car wasn't in the driveway, but the lights were on. When I knocked, Aunt Maria opened the door instead. Oh, Noelle. Come in, she said, smiling nervously. The living room smelled like coffee and tension. Mom sat on the couch, flipping through a stack of bank papers. I stepped closer. Hey. She looked up, startled. You shouldn't just drop by, Noelle. I was worried. You've been quiet. She pressed her lips together. I'm fine. Her tone was clipped, defensive. I glanced at the papers, refinancing statements, old bills. She noticed and covered them quickly. What are those? I asked. Nothing you need to worry about, she snapped. I stayed calm. Are you in trouble, Mom? She stood abruptly. Don't talk to me like I'm helpless. You've already done enough. The words cut deep, but I nodded. Okay. When I turned to leave, she said, almost in a whisper, "You made me look weak, Noelle." I froze. "By paying off your debt?" She didn't answer. I walked out slowly, realizing she didn't hate what I'd done, she hated that it came from me. That night, Aaron called. "Mom's been weird lately," he said. "She's been talking about refinancing the house again. Says she doesn't want to owe you." "Owe me?" I repeated. "I never asked for anything." "I know," he said softly. "But you know how she is. She'd rather struggle than admit someone helped." I leaned back on my couch, staring at the ceiling. "So she's going to undo everything just to prove she doesn't need me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "You know, she keeps old pictures of you on the fridge. She talks about you more than anyone. Then why does it feel like she hates me?" I asked. Aaron sighed. "Because you remind her of herself. Stubborn. Independent. She can't control you, so she calls it useless." That made me quiet. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn her approval, but maybe what she wanted wasn't a daughter to be proud of, maybe she wanted one who depended on her. And I never was that person. After the call, I looked at the old photo of us on my nightstand, her arm around me, both of us smiling like the world hadn't yet complicated our love. A week later, I was back at her house, this time because Aaron begged me. "Please," he said. "She's been depressed. Maybe talk to her." When I arrived, she was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with unopened mail scattered everywhere. She looked up but didn't smile. "Hi, Mom." "Hi," she said quietly. We sat in silence for a while until she finally whispered, "You shouldn't have paid it, Noelle. That was my responsibility." "I know," I said softly. "But I wanted you to have peace. You've worked hard your whole life." Her eyes filled with tears. "You think I need your charity?" "It wasn't charity," I said. "It was love." She looked down, shaking her head. "You'll understand one day, when you have a daughter. Pride isn't bad, it's all that kept me going." "I understand," I said. "But sometimes pride keeps you from healing too." She didn't reply. When I stood to leave, she said in a trembling voice, "I don't know how to thank you without feeling small." I turned to her. "Then don't thank me. Just forgive me for caring." Her eyes glistened as I left. For the first time, she didn't stop me. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. Mom showed up at my apartment, holding a small box. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded, surprised. She sat on the couch, fidgeting with the box. "I went through some old things," she said. "Found this." Inside was a stack of envelopes, letters, receipts, little notes she'd saved from years ago. At the top was one of my old report cards from 5th grade, with her handwriting on the back, "One day, she'll surprise me." I blinked fast, trying not to cry. She sighed. "You did surprise me, Noelle. I just didn't know how to handle it." My throat tightened. "You don't have to explain." She shook her head. "Yes, I do. I pushed you so hard because I was scared. Scared you'd struggle like I did. But you're stronger than I ever was." For a long moment, we sat in silence. Then she said something I'd never heard from her before. "I'm proud of you." The words were soft, almost fragile, but they were real. And in that moment, every bruise her words had ever left on me began to fade. After Mom's visit, I thought things might finally settle. But change doesn't happen overnight, especially in our family. She started calling me once a week, small things at first, "Did you eat?" or "How's work?" Her tone was softer, almost careful. I tried not to expect too much. Then one evening, she asked, "Do you want to come to dinner this Sunday?" I hesitated but said yes. When I arrived, the house felt different, warmer somehow. She had cooked my favorite meal, the one she hadn't made since I was in college. We ate quietly until she said, "You were right. Pride does get in the way." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and smiled. After dinner, she showed me the garden she'd started. "I needed something new," she said. "To remind myself life keeps going." It was the closest thing to peace we'd had in years. When I left, she hugged me for a long time, really hugged me. And for the first time, I didn't feel like her failure. I felt like her daughter again. A few days later, I got a call from the bank. The woman on the line sounded polite but confused. "Ms. Wells, your mother requested to reopen her mortgage account. We wanted to verify that with you since your payment recently cleared it." I froze. "She what?" "Yes," the woman said. "She asked if she could resume monthly payments. She said the payoff was a mistake." I hung up without answering. That night, I drove straight to her house. She was in the living room, folding laundry like nothing was wrong. "Why would you do that?" I asked. She looked up, startled. "Do what?" "Reopen the mortgage. I just got off the phone with the bank." Her lips tightened. "Because I can't accept that kind of gift. It's too much." I stared at her. "Mom, this isn't about money. It's about trust." She sighed. "It's about dignity." "No," I said quietly. "It's about control." We stood there, two women who loved each other too much and too stubbornly to say it right. That night, I realized pride wasn't the only thing keeping her distance, it was shame. The next morning, I went to Aaron's place. He lived in a small townhouse a few blocks from Mom's, cluttered with gym gear and half-finished projects. He poured coffee while I told him everything. He frowned. "That's crazy. Why would she reopen the loan?" "She said she couldn't accept my help," I replied. "It's like she's allergic to being cared for." Aaron rubbed the back of his neck. "You know what I think? She's scared you'll find out." "Find out what?" He hesitated. "Dad didn't just leave. He left her with debt, and she made sure we never knew. She borrowed from friends, took extra shifts, everything to hide it." I blinked, stunned. "You knew?" "Only recently," he said. "Maria told me." I sat there, numb. All those years I thought Mom looked down on me, maybe she was just terrified I'd see how much she'd struggled. "She didn't want you to feel responsible," Aaron added. "She hates owing anyone. Even her kids." I leaned back, heart aching. Suddenly her resentment made sense, paying off the house hadn't freed her. It had exposed her secret. That night, I lay awake replaying every memory, every harsh word, every cold glance. Mom wasn't cruel because she hated me. She was cruel because she hated feeling small. And when I paid off her mortgage, I'd made her feel smaller. I decided to talk to her again, not to argue, but to understand. When I showed up the next morning, she was pruning the roses. She didn't look surprised to see me. "Coffee?" she asked. We sat on the porch, quiet for a while. "Finally," I said, "I know about Dad. About the debt." Her hands froze midair. She looked at me, tears forming. "Aaron told you?" I nodded. She sighed, setting the shears down. "I worked 3 jobs, Noelle. I skipped meals. I lied to everyone so you kids wouldn't feel ashamed. I never would have judged you," I whispered. She smiled sadly. "I know that now. But back then, pride was all I had." For the first time, I didn't see her as my critic. I saw her as a woman who had been fighting her whole life just to stand tall. And maybe she'd just been too tired to notice I was fighting too. From that day, things began to shift. Mom didn't reopen the mortgage again. She let the payment stand, though she never called it a gift. She started coming by my apartment, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with nothing but conversation. One evening, she brought over a stack of old photo albums. We sat cross-legged on the floor, laughing at my crooked pigtails and Aaron's missing front teeth. "Do you remember this one?" she asked, pointing to a picture of me holding a broken toy. "You cried for hours, and then you fixed it yourself." I laughed. "Guess I've always liked fixing things." She nodded. "Including me, apparently." That line made my throat tighten. "Mom," I said softly, "I wasn't trying to fix you. I was just trying to give back." She reached over, squeezing my hand. "I know. And I see you now, Noelle. I really do." For years, I'd dreamed of hearing those words. But now, they didn't feel like a victory. They felt like healing, like both of us finally exhaling after holding our breath for too long. A few weeks passed peacefully. For the first time in years, Mom and I were talking without walking on glass. Then, one Sunday, she asked if I could stop by after church. When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table with a small envelope in front of her. "What's that?" I asked. She pushed it toward me. "It's not much," she said, "but it's something." Inside was a check for $500. I frowned. "Mom, no. You don't need to." "I do," she interrupted. "You took care of me. Let me take care of you, even a little." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. "If I can give anything back, I will. That's how I keep my dignity." I wanted to argue, but instead I folded the check back into the envelope and nodded. "Okay," I said softly. "Thank you." She smiled, relief washing over her face. We spent the rest of the afternoon cooking together, like we used to when I was little. At one point she laughed, flour on her hands, and said, "You know, maybe I was wrong about you being useless." I laughed too. "Maybe?" "Fine," she said. "Definitely." And for once, the word didn't sting. It felt like peace. Spring turned into summer, and our bond kept growing. Sometimes I'd stop by her house just to help in the garden or share dinner. The walls that had stood between us for years were finally crumbling. One evening, while sorting through her filing cabinet, I found an old folder marked confidential. "Mom, what's this?" I asked. She hesitated, then sighed. "You can open it." Inside were letters, dozens of them, all from the same sender, the Community Credit Union. Each letter was a payment confirmation. My name was on a few. Confused, I flipped through until one caught my eye: loan forgiveness approval, Noelle Wells. My stomach dropped. "Mom, what is this?" She looked down at her hands. "When you first went to college, I took out a small loan in your name. I thought I could pay it off before you ever knew." I stared at her. "You took out debt under my name?" She nodded, tears forming. I was desperate. But I repaid every cent. I swear, Noelle, I never meant to lie. I felt anger, sadness, and sympathy all tangled together. The truth wasn't betrayal, it was survival. And for the first time, I realized how heavy her silence had really been. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were loud and messy. I kept replaying what Mom had said, how she'd borrowed in my name, how she'd carried that secret for years. Part of me wanted to be angry, but another part of me couldn't be. She'd done it to protect us. The next morning, I called Aaron. "Did you know about the loan?" He hesitated. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She told me last year. She made the final payment before you paid the mortgage. She kept it from me all this time." She was ashamed, he said. She wanted to make it right before you ever found out. I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to steady my breath. Mom had carried her pride, her pain, and her debts all alone for years, and I'd mistaken that silence for judgment. Later that day, I went to her house. She was in the kitchen, humming softly. I handed her the folder. I read everything. She froze. Then I added, "You don't need to hide anymore, Mom." "Not from me." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they weren't from shame. They were from release. From that day forward, things changed between us. We no longer tiptoed around our past. Instead, we spoke about it, honestly, quietly, like two women finally learning how to breathe. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset from her porch, Mom said, "I spent so many years trying to make you tougher, because I thought life would break you like it broke me." I looked at her. "And?" She smiled. "Turns out, you were already stronger than I ever was." The air smelled like jasmine and rain. It was the kind of peace that doesn't come often, soft and earned. A week later, Erin and I threw a small barbecue for her birthday. The whole family came. At dinner, Mom raised her glass. "To my kids," she said. "Both of them did more for me than I ever did for myself." Everyone clapped, but I just watched her, proud, composed, radiant in her own quiet way. She'd finally said it: gratitude, pride, love. And for once, I didn't need to prove anything. She saw me, not as her disappointment, but as her reflection. Summer faded into fall, and life moved gently forward. Mom started volunteering at a community center, helping other single mothers manage their finances. When I visited one Saturday, I found her teaching a small class. "Budgeting isn't just about money," she was saying. "It's about believing you can recover." Her words made me smile. That was the woman I'd always known, strong, smart, compassionate, even when she didn't show it. After class, she hugged me tightly. "You inspire me, you know," she said. "If you hadn't shown me grace, I'd still be hiding from myself." I held her hand. "You taught me everything I know about resilience, Mom. You just didn't realize it." She laughed, wiping her eyes. Before I left, she slipped an envelope into my bag. When I got home and opened it, I found a note inside. "You once paid off my mortgage. Now, I'm paying off something bigger, my pride. Thank you for teaching me what love really looks like." I pressed the letter to my chest, tears filling my eyes. It wasn't the words that moved me most, it was knowing we'd both finally learned how to say thank you without shame. A few months later, I got a promotion at work. It wasn't just more money, it was recognition. I was now leading a small team, managing projects I used to only dream about. When I told Mom, she clapped her hands together like a kid. "See? I told you something good would happen," she said. I laughed. "Mom, you told me I was useless." She blushed, covering her face. "Don't remind me." But she was smiling, and that meant everything. That weekend, she surprised me by organizing a small dinner, not a big family event, just her, me, and Erin. When we sat down, she raised her glass again. "To my daughter, who proved me wrong in every possible way." Erin grinned. "You're finally admitting it?" She nodded. "Yes." I said she'd never do anything real. Turns out, she built a real life, for all of us. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Her words didn't erase the years of pain, but they healed something deep inside me. Maybe love wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about trying again, even after you've both failed each other. Life became softer after that. Mom and I made a habit of Sunday dinners. Sometimes we'd talk about the past, other times, we just shared quiet meals. One evening, she pulled out an old shoebox. "I've been saving these for years," she said. Inside were pictures, birthday cards, even a newspaper clipping from when I graduated. I used to look at these whenever I felt like I'd failed you, she whispered. You never failed me, I said. She smiled sadly. Maybe not. But I made it harder for you to believe in yourself. I thought criticism would push you. I didn't realize it just pushed you away. I reached for her hand. You did the best you could. And maybe I did too. She looked up, eyes glistening. You're nothing like me, Noelle. You're better. I shook my head. No, Mom. I'm a lot like you. I just learned from both your strength and your mistakes. That night, as I drove home, I realized forgiveness wasn't one big moment, it was hundreds of small ones stitched quietly over time. By winter, Mom's garden had gone bare, but she still went outside every morning to water what wasn't there. When I teased her, she said, you have to care for things even when they look dead. That's how you learn patience. That stuck with me. One afternoon, she called, sounding tired. I'm fine, she said quickly, just a little dizzy. I went over right away. She brushed it off as stress, but I stayed the night anyway. We sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, watching an old movie. Halfway through, she said quietly, you know, I used to be afraid you'd leave me one day. You were always so independent. I smiled. I almost did, Mom. But then I realized I didn't want to. She turned to me, eyes soft. I don't deserve you. I squeezed her hand. You deserve everything good that's still coming. She fell asleep on my shoulder before I finished the sentence. That moment, her head resting against me, felt like the universe had finally closed a loop that had been open too long. When spring returned, so did the flowers in her garden. I helped her plant new roses along the fence, the same ones she'd taught me to care for when I was a kid. We spent hours together, our hands dirty but hearts clean. Afterward, we sat under the big oak tree, sharing lemonade. Remember when you said I hadn't done anything real? I asked, half teasing. She laughed softly. I was wrong. Paying off my house was real. But forgiving me, that was something else entirely. I smiled. You're still dramatic. Runs in the family, she said, winking. We laughed until our sides hurt. That evening, as the sun dipped low, she looked at me and said, if I ever leave this world, I want you to know one thing, I was proud of you long before I said it. My chest tightened. Then I'll hold on to that, always. We didn't know it then, but that conversation would stay with me forever, the kind of memory that doesn't fade with time, only deepens. A year later, I stood in front of the same house, her house, the one she once thought made her strong and later realized didn't define her. The mortgage-free home she tried to reject now stood as a quiet symbol of everything we'd survived together. The garden was full again, blooming, wild, and alive. I knelt by the roses, whispering, they look perfect, Mom. Aaron came out carrying a tray of lemonade. You've kept it exactly like she liked it, he said. Maybe it's my way of keeping her close, I replied. He smiled. She'd say you're doing something real. I laughed softly. She'd say a lot more than that. We sat there in silence for a while, the wind rustling through the leaves. I thought about everything, her pride, my pain, the mortgage, the words we both regretted and the ones we finally said. In the end, love didn't look like perfection. It looked like this, a garden full of second chances, a home built on forgiveness, and a daughter who finally understood that being enough had never been the problem. It was always about being seen.